Alrighty, hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Serving Nerve, where we talk about whatever we want, and today we're going to be just looking at feminism. Let's see where feminism's at. You know, we've been doing, the fat, cringe, feministic sort of TikTok compilations, but I just want to delve right into feminism, and so far we have what I believe is a lovely gentleman with a very colorful beard on the screen. So let's just look at this compilation, check it out, and see what, let's just see how sexist we are, I guess, because I feel like I'm going to pick flaw with this, and, if you go against feminism, that means you're sexist. So, let's just, tip our hat to that. I've got a top hat at the side over there if I need to tip my hat to feminism. So let's just get into the show. Let's just see what happens.
People often ask me, what right do women not have that men do? They point to the law and they say, look, women are equal under the law. Which is great. I'm so glad the law supports women. The problem is, culture does not. We're still trying to restrict what women do with their bodies, i.e. abortions. Media still sets an unrealistic expectation of what a woman should look like, and women suffer eating.
I just have to point this out. So far, I have to point this one thing out. Men deal with this too. There are cultural stereotypes and expectations on both sides of the spectrum for men and women. You know, men are more likely to be categorized as, potential sexual offenders against women than women are of men. There are going to be instances of time where men are also just as bad off in regards to people discriminating against them sheerly because they're men. So, it's on both sides of the spectrum so far.
Eating disorders. And
he's saying eating disorders and stuff like that as well. And, guys also get eating disorders. It's, if you ever have been in the bodybuilding world, it's pretty disordered and it's more justifiable amongst those individuals, because a lot of people do, again, say, guys, they don't deal with it the same way women do. They still deal with it. Guys deal with the same kinds of crap, just in a different way. I feel like it's just, equally bad. I believe in equalism, and we're all equally fucked.
Turn to self-harm, because they can't attain what the media says they should be. Also, we still shame women for having sex in the year 2020. So why do
we also, again, we do that with men, maybe maybe he's referring to, OnlyFans type stuff, but, I don't know, man. I feel like you can just pick flaw with either side of the spectrum on the basis of sex and, dealing with, the discrimination that is, living the life of a man or a woman.
Talk about feminism on TikTok? Because TikTok is a cultural tool, and I'm tired of women being treated this way. I want to change culture, not law. Culture.
I have to also point out, this individual is trying to be kind of a stan or whatever. I just don't understand why, guys feel like they need to, white knight their way for women. In this day and age, women are pretty good at defending themselves verbally. We're pretty good about, just shutting that shit down. And when we're not, we learn to get good because it's just called being human. You gotta get good. I just don't understand why guys have to, it's so funny because I don't understand. My mother taught me better than to entrust my well-being to anybody other than me. Into this guy. I don't want, this guy defending me. This guy doesn't know what it's like to be a woman or the life experiences of a woman, and that's kind of why he's, I believe, being somewhat defensive in this regard towards women. But it's I don't think women in the Western world have it that bad. Okay, we got it just as bad as guys. So, I don't know what the point is because we all deal with the same shit. Oh, the other thing I want to point out with this is the culture thing. People have the right to their opinion and perspective, even if it's sexist. They have the right to their opinion, and also they have the right to face the judgment of society as a result of such. But I just don't really see the point, because you can just choose not to associate with these individuals. You can choose if somebody's actually genuinely sexist, not to associate with them. So I don't know why we have to try and, bend everybody to our will. I just don't see the point.
Women can physically only produce one baby a year, whereas a man can get an indefinite amount of women pregnant in a year. So why is it all the pressure on birth control is on women, when the issue obviously lies with men?
Regarding abortions, and regarding this, a lot of women who are in favor of feminism and abortion and, having the right to an abortion, they also will always say, my body, my choice. It's also your body and your choice to protect it through contraceptive purposes. We can't really create a double standard like this, where it's somehow a woman's right to an abortion, but it is also not their right to have the means of getting pregnant in the first place. In any consensual interaction between a man and a woman, consensual, and listen, I know we can argue consent, but like in a consensual situation, it is up to the woman to use the appropriate forms of contraception for themselves, whether it's IUDs, condoms, birth control, whatever the case is. We do need to understand that if we're going to be able to say my body, my choice, it's my choice to also protect it. I think that it's good for a man to obviously make sure that he's using the appropriate means of like using condoms and whatnot. But at the end of the day, like, it's between the two individuals having that sexual interaction. It is not just men. It's not the issue lying with men. And also, in the Western world, if a guy decides to get a bunch of chicks pregnant, that child support's gonna start coming in, and that's not gonna be pretty. They might, garnish your wages or whatever if you don't pay it. Men will be penalized if they decide to not use the appropriate contraception and also get a bunch of chicks pregnant, particularly in America, Canada, the UK, anywhere where child support is a thing. Now, child support sucks, and a lot of parents don't pay it. My father never really paid it. I mean, he still owes a bunch now. So, on the basis of payment, that is one thing that is concerning. But in a general sense, we cannot control all men and expect them to act like dogs in the wake of scoring. It's between two people. You gotta be at least equally as, at fault for any potential pregnancies.
Every now and then some asshole will comment on one of my videos saying some shit like, I don't agree with feminism because they take it to extremes. They say I hate all men, they say kill all men, they say let's put men in cages. And that's why I don't support it, because they don't want equality, they want women's superiority. Okay, shithead. Let's think about this for a second. I'm a man, unless you can tell. I've been in exclusively men's spaces. You're gonna tell me saying I hate all men is worse than how men talk about women? That's fucking bullshit. Men all around the world kill women more than women kill men. You're gonna tell me women saying kill all men is worse than men actually killing women? Women in certain parts of the world are bought and sold to this day. Put in cages? You're gonna tell me that women saying let's put men in cages is worse than men actually doing that? The funny thing is, feminists who say those things are a considerable fucking minority.
I can appreciate some of the things this guy is saying. To be fair, it is easier and better to say something than to actually do it. But we're bypassing, given that we all, or most of us, are in the Western world when we talk about feminism. When we talk about feminism and, this new wave of feminism, we're not really talking about women in foreign countries or women who are trafficked or, children also who are trafficked into this and also put in these terrible situations. We're mainly talking about the new age feminism that has permeated the Western world, that does endeavor, in many senses, to try and equalize the playing field by giving women more rights than men, or more privileges than men, or arguing that men don't have as many rights as they should. That is mainly what I've heard. Coming from Canada, also, it's much more brutal in that regard than in maybe other places. So, obviously, I am biased because my experience is mainly with Canada. And in Canada, it is quite brutal in the wake of feminism. Now, it's not to justify anything regarding putting women in cages or endorsing, anti-feminism or or endorsing actual patriarchal views. But there is a difference between that and also disavowing that minority of women. As this individual says, it's a minority of extreme women who believe in, kill all men or all men deserve to die. It's a small amount of women who do actually believe that. But in general, that also is not justifiable. It's not good to say, oh, this person is saying something bad. Oh, it doesn't matter because this person's actually doing something bad. They're both bad. They're both bad. So we shouldn't actually endorse either nor justify either.
I, as a man, hate men more than 99% of the feminists I know, and I know a lot of them.
And I, as a woman, probably hate more women than any other man I've met. It's just how it is. You're more likely to hate your own sex than you are to hate the other sex. I'm just gonna point that out. You know how many annoying women I've dealt with in my life as a woman, surrounded by women my entire life, growing up with sisters and a mother, and having a lack of a father figure, which is ironic. But personally, can't say this for men, because I'm not a man. But for women, the women I've met, a lot more women hate other women than they do hate other men. Some will also hate men. It is what it is. But I'm just saying, you can say it on both sides. We're all hateable the more we get to know each other.
And trust me, despite being a man, I do hate men. So it boils down to this. We're okay with disregarding an entire ideology that is beneficial to all fucking genders, which is against an oppressive fucking system. because a minority of people say they want to do to men what men have been doing to them for fucking centuries.
I just don't think that's a justifiable result of wanting equalism. In the Western world, we're pretty close to equalism, if not entirely so. You could argue in court systems or in a systemic sense regarding like court, mainly court, like law. I feel like men will have the books slammed down on them much more than women. And also, in regards to things like abortion and also like women's body rights, I feel like women are going to face more pressure in that regard. So it depends on the exact, like, context of what we refer to. But one other thing I have an issue with here is, instead of promoting feminism, why don't we just, like, actually endorse the concepts of equalism? I was dealing with something last night that I don't want to go into the depth of. I'm not trying to, like, talk for my coworkers or anything. So we're working at my restaurant last night, right? Me and my 19-year-old bartender coworker, right? And I'm working as a server, and they're working as a bartender. And he's a 19-year-old, he's a good-looking dude, but he's 19, and he's working the bar, and some drunk woman starts grabbing at him, dancing all up on him, doing all this weird, gross, creepy, perverse stuff, grabbing him by the neck, like doing weird, overly sexual, provocative things to him. He's incredibly uncomfortable, and we're all trying to somehow defend him in the wake of this. But we also are, like, kind of pawns of circumstance. We don't really know how to deal with the situation. If that happened to a woman, if my bartender buddy were a woman, do you think that would have lasted for more than 8 seconds? No. That person would have gotten kicked out. You know what happened instead? Her friends basically, like, kind of let it happen, and she was allowed to stay in the space. And it's not appropriate. And I'm going to point this out. A lot of guys deal with things like that much more than women do without having consequence for the woman who's imposing herself on the guy. I'll tell you, last night, I don't think my dude liked it. He was pretty uncomfortable. So there are other situations where I can see a double standard way more. Like, I'm not trying to just be, like, justifying all this stuff. I don't believe in putting women in cages. But I also don't believe in the idea of, like, making things more unequal than they are, which is what the new wave, westernized feminism, seems to have some sort of obsession with doing.
Makes you uncomfortable, and you don't want to be associated with that. We have a name for that. Fucking privilege.
That's so rude. Are they saying, like, yeah? Like, would you want to say that? Like, I have a serious question. If there's some guy you like, but your bias against all men perpetuates you to think badly of them, what level of logic do you have to operate with for that? Because, like, that is a terrible way to think about your partner. It's a terrible way to think in a man-woman relationship, that you think badly of your partner surely because they're a man. Like, that's quite bad. It's pretty bad, especially if you like them. You would assume that their personality or, that's what's going to make or break it. It's going to be their biases, their perception of reality, their self, what they're all about, not the fact that they're a man or a woman. So that's pretty sexist in my opinion. I don't know. I just don't understand. Like, I feel like that's kind of sexist. Unless this individual is kind of like, I don't know. I can't tell because they're not actually saying it. They're not actually saying anything. Like, I don't really get it. Like, all men suck or men suck, and then you're flipping the bird at it. It has no proving point. Like, all men to generalize. Again, so much generalization. It's, when you generalize, you might be trying to find, like, a specific variable that's actually true amongst a population of individuals. But that's when you start, doing this thing called discriminating and also creating bias and stereotype against people, which is literally able to build itself into sexism, racism, etc. So ironically, saying this creates more unequal perspective amongst the sexes. It's truly ironic. If you think being a feminist makes you less of a man, your idea of masculinity is rooted in oppressing women. Again, like, it's a little bit subjective for the terminology, because when somebody associates as a feminist, it's hard to gauge exactly what that means. So if your perception of masculinity is more of a manly man who actually believes in some level of, gender stereotype or treating women as, like a stereotypical woman or something. I don't even know. You can actually prove this to be both true and false. You can literally say, like, yeah, feminism can destroy your perception of masculinity or destroy masculinity in men, make you less of a man if you perceive or stereotype a man as being X, Y, and Z that would go against the concept of New Age feminism. That's the point. So technically, yes and no. It depends on your perception of feminism, masculinity, and what a man is categorized as for being manly.
How we live in a world that makes fun of guys who cry, but 80% of suicides are guys.
Okay, this one's for dudes. And this is a perfect example why feminism is beneficial for men.
So I don't understand, like, this guy was just saying, like, I'm sorry, I need to see that one more time.
How we live in a world that makes fun of guys who cry, but 80% of suicides are guys.
I have to point out one thing when it comes to this is, I feel like guys, for whatever reason, maybe it's because they feel like going to therapy or, having, like, an appropriate person to talk to or exposing their feelings can, maybe put them at risk in some capacity. And they also have to deal with more brash pressure. Like, they're going to be less coddled in society than a woman may be in some circumstances, which may be why the suicide rate could be higher, or it could just be statistically, like, what jobs are these men getting into? Where's the highest rate of, a lack of mental well-being in these job industries or in these other circumstances? In, like, the westernized world, where's the location, where are the high suicide rates, etc. And if you find all of that and you find that it connotates with the individuals associated with those groups being mostly men, you can associate it also with what they're experiencing, like what the job is that they're experiencing with that much pressure and stress and dismay. What have they experienced that is perpetuating that level of mental unwellness? It could very well be something that is associated because a job is dominated by men in some regard, because it's not a good job that anybody wants. So that's an idea. But at the same time, it could just be like societal pressures, the dealings with of life. Like 80%, if that is actually true, which I haven't looked at, but if it's actually 80%, there is a drastic contrast in population between men and women and suicide rates, which is interesting. I'd like to know more about that.
Okay, this one's for dudes. And this is a perfect example why feminism is beneficial for men. All of you think feminism is hating men. It's not. It's about taking down patriarchy and its oppressive norms. Even though men are the ones who benefit from patriarchy the most, they're still victimized to an extent. You can think of it as misogyny being a two-way street. Patriarchy tells men they shouldn't be vulnerable or show emotions. It uses misogyny to label those things as feminine things. So
I could level with this. I can level with this. One other thing that crossed my mind is maybe, like, when I was telling you about the bartender situation and all that, I feel like more men are likely to be, like, dealing with things like sexual abuse or assault or something like that. And it's more shameful for them to come out as, like, having that experience. So they bottle it up, or they can't, like, tell people about it. Or if they do say anything about it, some people will be like, what are you talking about? She was so hot. Like, you're lucky to have gotten, like, assaulted by her, or something like that. Then I could see it really being, like, a bad situation where you would become severely depressed because people are also endorsing people abusing you. Like, I could see this as actually being a problem. Now, I'm not trying to misspeak, because, again, like, I don't have any statistics on my hands. But, if that could be a case, that also is concerning. So, anyways, pardon me.
So when men get vulnerable or emotional, they're criticized, made fun of, told to be a man, not to act like a woman. That's toxic as fuck for men. Because men end up bottling up their emotions. They have nowhere to seek help for. And they don't know how to deal with these emotions. Patriarchy oppresses all of us. Some more than others, yes. But all of us. So men...
I also have to point out, I'm so sorry I keep interrupting him, but I've seen women do this to men way more than men do this to men. And I know that I've only been surrounded by women, so obviously I don't have the best perception of how men will treat other men in the wake of, a guy having to face his emotions, a guy having to deal with all this. But I've met so many women, seen so many women, dealt with so many women, and lived and grown up with women. Like, and a lot of them, especially in Canada for some reason, but a lot of them go like, you're a man, you don't have this issue, this isn't a problem for you, like, you can't experience this, and this, your feelings aren't valid. Like, women do this way more, in my opinion, to men, from my perception, than men do it to other men. And, like, I'm sure a lot of men will say, suck it up, deal with it, like, whatever, to another guy who's going through something horrible. but women do it just the same. If anything, this proves also that there's a potential situation in the wake of, like, feministic views and women thinking, oh, you're a guy, you don't deal with this the same way women do, so your feelings are invalid. Like, I've seen that as well, but at the same time, I feel like men have it way worse than it's being perceived when it comes to feminism, when it comes to sexism. You know, there's a lot of sexism on both sides. You can argue that feminists and the New Age feminism is just as sexist as what would be with the current patriarchal views of the New Age or today, or whatever the case is. So I don't know, man. I just feel like men got it rough, especially in an emotional sense or in, like, talking about these things. And then also, women make it harder a lot of the time because they'll be like, you're a man, you, like, literally don't experience the same thing as me. It's so invalidating. Feminism in the New Age, in my opinion, it does invalidate, at the very least, invalidate men for their feelings and experiences.
Men needs to be a feminist also for their own sake.
Male privilege is never having to worry about the size of your partner's head. Yeah. I was watching Love is Blind with my wife, and one of the girls on the show was like, he's got a big head, that's gonna hurt when we have kids. And I was like, that is a weird thing to say. And she was like, not really. And then it hit me. Like, I have a huge head. Like, I got a big old noggin. And it's a running joke for me that I have to buy hats from a special company because my head's too big. If I wear a normal-sized baseball cap, I look like a 5-year-old kid. But apparently every time I made that joke, in my wife's mind, she was thinking, childbirth is going to be big ouch. Like, male privilege and white privilege and all sorts of privilege, it's just invisible while you're inside it. And I've been working on learning and being better. It just never occurred to me that the size of your partner's head would be a concern like that.
This is so weird. I'm sorry. And I've never thought about this before regarding genetic coding, the size of your partner's cranium and what you're going to be pushing out from between your legs in any capacity at any point in my life. But I also have to point out, you as an individual, no matter if you're a man or a woman, you can't choose how big your head is. So, I don't know, man. I feel like that's not called patriarchy, that's just called genetics. You know, I don't know. This one's a little bit weird. It's very confusing. I've never thought about this before. But I do have to say, like, you know, you can't control it. It's not like something you can, like, stop with feminism. Unless you want to pull out parts of your skull because somehow that oppresses women. The size of your head oppresses women. I don't think you can do much about that. I could be wrong.
I feel broken by this information.
It's not all men. You know that it goes both ways, right? It happens to men too. Yes, it does. But do you know what the difference is? With you, it is individual. With us, it is systematic.
And this is why men can't talk about their feelings or have experiences. It again, just your individual experience doesn't matter. Your individual experience as a man doesn't matter. It only matters in a systemic sense with women. So, like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it's just so many double standards. It's like, well, it doesn't matter as much for men because they deal with it this way. They're still dealing with it. They're still dealing with whatever you're saying it happens to men too. Regarding, like, I don't think we should belittle people, especially since individual experiences matter. I don't know, like, if you, like, the entire concept of the Me Too movement, yeah, it was a big movement or whatever, but the entire concept is that these individuals had these horrible experiences. But the point of it is individual experience that actually perpetuated an entire movement. So, like, what, individual experience doesn't matter now. So it's just ridiculous. It's like we have to come up with all these new rules to try and justify why women are more oppressed than men, when we're not. Like, we have an equal level of fuckery in the wake of the current system we operate in the Western world, particularly in the Western world. Again, I have to preface this. Western world.
It happens in family, it happens multiple times in public, it happens openly in school, with doctors, with teachers, with authority figures, it happens even on live TV. And no, by saying this, I'm in no way, shape, or form belittling male victims. But do you know what I found interesting? That the only time when you speak about male suffering is when you defend yourself when we speak up. If you truly...
This doesn't make any sense. So I'm trying so hard to understand what level of logic we have to operate with here. You're literally saying these men's individual experiences don't matter because women deal with it more. Like, it's so stupid and backwards. And listen, I've dealt with guys having the same situations that women have dealt with. Like, this is the thing. It's like, this is literally completely belittling people as victims because of their individualized experiences. Because they're men, so it doesn't matter as much for them as it does for women because women deal with it systemically. It's not a justification. Like, why are we trying to make women have this, like, systemic perspective of themselves, like they're all one entity? They're all individuals. We're all individuals. Like, again, it just doesn't make any sense. I'm literally becoming discombobulated by the level of stupidity with this. It doesn't make sense. Any person who is a victim, man or woman, should not have to deal with that experience, okay? Like, I cannot get my mind around how many hoops we have to jump through to somehow justify women having it worse than men when you have to deal with something horrible like, you know, an assault or something. It's going to be terrible no matter who you are, man or woman. It's going to be traumatic. It's an experience that you probably are going to have to work through with professional assistance or at least familial support. Do you think this is going to help it? Like, Jesus Christ.
Care about male victims and male suffering, then make videos about it. I am so sorry that I talk about this systematic oppression of women. Because what I'm talking about is not happening since days, since months, or since years. It happened since the beginning of time.
I'm so confused. I'm literally so confused. I don't even understand the exact context of this, because if you're arguing for, like, people dealing with crazy crap during, like, throughout the beginning of time, Greek times. What about pederasty from ancient Greece? Sorry, I was looking into this. I forgot what it was called, but pederasty from ancient Greece. Sorry that this looks so, like, bad. Let me just scooch it over a little bit. If you go on to, like, I know it's Wikipedia, but, like, whatever. Anyways, it's, you know, it was a socially acknowledged romantic relationship between an older male and a younger male, usually in his teens. Like, if we're gonna go back in time, let's go back in time. We can find horrible experiences for both men and women throughout history. Throughout history, man. You know, men were drafted into wars and stuff, too. Well, we want to talk about that. Like, people literally have the most terrible perception of only women having dealt with, like, horrible things in the past, like, historically. Every single person, it was the past. It was brutal. It was terrible. It sucked. It sucked booty cheeks. Men dealt with terrible things too. I just don't understand. I don't understand. We've all been dealing with garbage from the beginning of time. We shouldn't try and, like, belittle people who are victims in this current day and age now just because women had it harder, or because something is systemic versus individualized, or whatever the case is. Your individual experience matters and shouldn't be belittled. So I cannot get my mind around feminism, and this is why I just don't see any logical reasoning. Like, and also, I mean, I'm in a capitalistic society. I don't know about you, my people, but, you know, in the wake of gender, it's not as important as money. Money rules the world. And in America, at least, man, I'll tell you this. Being a woman probably got me further than it ever could. I've worked at restaurants where they literally only hire for servers 5'2" women. I'm not kidding. Every single woman at certain restaurants I've worked at, cute, small, same height. You know, you gotta be cute. And you can say that's sexist because it's objectifying, but it got me a job, made me some money, and allowed me to bounce to a different workplace. Like, you know, there are opportunities that will come just because you're a woman, and a lot of women, they'll use it. Like, and I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just saying, like, there are a lot of situations where guys are thrown into way worse shit than women. Women are thrown into terrible shit and objectified. We all suck. We all deal with terrible shit all the time. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You're gonna have a terrible individualized experience. You're gonna have to overcome a bunch of shit throughout your life. And to be constantly blaming each other for our individual experiences or belittling each other, it's just not gonna be a solution. So I really do encourage you not to just be, like, anti-feminist. I don't really encourage anti-feminism. I don't encourage feminism. I don't encourage this new age, like, red-pilled masculinity crap. I just think you should be you. Like, the number one thing you gotta do is just be your own person. You should always strive to be good, respectful to people, uphold your moral values, and also be yourself. Be an individual. Don't think of yourself as a man or a woman having to associate with these groups of men and women surely because you're a man or a woman. You have to identify with feminism. You can't be feministic. You're anti-feminist. Like, quit identifying with all these groups of shit, because it's going to make you a piece of shit, all right? It's going to make you one piece of a massive brick of shit. So, like, I'm just telling you guys, like, be individualized. And if you are an unlikable individual, then you will dig your own grave no matter what the circumstance. But don't let shit like this, like, crap like this, like, these kinds of people, like, change the name of the play when it's really not that deep. Like, we are in a different world now. I don't know where this lady lives. Maybe she's dealt with more horrible things than I can ever understand or perceive. Many people have. I'm very lucky in my life. And I'm also lucky to maybe be a woman. Like, at the end of the day, like, it's a lucky break in some regards. It gives me more opportunities in some respects. And, you know, it's the same thing for being a dude. Being a dude, you have certain opportunities that women will never have. You also have certain penalizations for your entire existence that women will never face. And same thing with being a woman. You'll deal with things that no man will ever deal with. You know? No man will ever have a period. I'll tell you that much, okay? Unless they went from being a female to a male and they still have working parts, okay? I'm just pointing out, everybody will deal with their shit. We should be equal. Like, we should be equally fucked, okay? I'm just saying. Equalism is the way, my people. Being equally screwed, I will all be screwed along with you, okay? That's the point I'm trying to make in this video. It's that men, women, we're all the same. We're all fucked. So anyways, that's the video. Tell me what you think in the comments below, my people. How sexist do you think I am? Because, you know what? If this is non-sexism, I don't know what isn't sexist and is sexist anymore. So that's the name of the game, and anyways, it's been lovely. Thank you so much for watching, my people. I will see you in the next video, and tell me what you think in the comments below. And, yeah, that was it. Slater.